Hey everyone, this is Joel at Hamina. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the real-time view in Hamina OnSite. Now, first thing I want to do is talk about my setup here from a software and a hardware perspective. I am demoing this from macOS. Hamina OnSite is available for macOS, specifically Apple Silicon MacBooks, but this is not my preferred place to use it. I really prefer to use this on an iPad or an iPhone just because they're so much more convenient to carry around. And by the way, if you don't have an iPhone and you don't have an iPad, the $330 iPad 10th gen is great. Like, it's a really, really good device if you need something cheap and cheerful that you can use with Hamina OnSite. But for doing like screen recording and screen sharing and stuff, the MacBook works a little bit better for the sake of demonstration, so I'm going to use that here today. Next, I'll talk about my hardware setup a little bit. I'm wearing my Oscium Nomad right now. I have my Oscium Wi-Spy Lucid that is plugged into my Nomad here, and I've got it in a little pouch up on the shoulder strap, and I have it connected to the Nomad with the included USB-C to USB-A cable, and I have it just routed down the strap, nice and neat, so it's out of the way. And you can see that I'm connected to the Nomad, battery looks good, Wi-Spy Lucid is connected, you can see the firmware version that I'm running, so everything's good to go there. If we unplug our Spectrum Analyzer, you see it disappear from the list. If I plug it back in, shows up again right away. So now let's go over to the real-time view and check that out. So the very first thing that you'll want to take a look at in the real-time view is the selected SSID. So up here in the corner is a list of all the SSIDs that we can hear with the Oscium Nomad right now. So I'm looking at the Hamina network right now, but there's also Hamina Meraki Lab. There's also Hamina Ruckus Lab, and we can switch SSIDs up there. We will try to automatically select the SSID that your device is associated to if we have the permissions from you to do that. We ask for location permission when you start the app for the first time. Then next, we can switch between different bands. So here's the 2.4 gigahertz band, here's the 5 gigahertz band, here's the 6 gigahertz band, and you can switch between them quickly there. Now down below that is the real-time view. This is basically a signal strength graph. So there are 3 spark lines here. The first spark line is our primary access point. This is the loudest access point for the selected SSID. So based on where I'm sitting right now, we can hear an access point that's broadcasting the Hamina SSID at negative 41 dBm. You can see it's on channel 108 up here on the end of the spark line. You can see that one's on channel 108. That's our primary access point. Next is our secondary access point. So this is the AP that's providing secondary coverage to us right now. It is the second loudest access point on our network that we can hear, and it's sitting at about negative 70 dBm right now. Finally is the signal strength from the nearest other access point. So this is any access point that's not part of the SSID that you have selected right now. There is another AP that's broadcasting another SSID nearby that's at about negative 52 dBm. It's on channel 165, and we can clearly see 165 up here as well to kind of tell, which is which even a little bit more. And the line is dimmed a little bit. Cool, so that's the real-time view. Now let's take a look at what I think is probably the star of the show, which is the spectrum view. So the spectrum view gets its data from a couple of different sources. First off, let's turn off the spectrum density. I will come back to that in just a second, but let's talk about just the access points for starters. So what we're looking at right now is all of the access points that the Oscium Nomad can hear in a traditional graphical Wi-Fi scanning view. So the ones that are a solid black line, those are part of the SSID that we have selected right now. In this case is the Hamina SSID. Then everything that has the dashed lines, those are other networks. So they're not part of the Hamina SSID, they're just other APs that we can hear nearby. Next, the height of the graph tells us the signal strength of those SSIDs or those networks or those access points, really is probably the better thing to say. So for example, we can see, if we kind of pinch out here so we can see the entire band, we can see that I have my loudest access point is sitting at about negative 40 dBm. That lines up perfectly with this AP here. And then we've got another access point down here that's at about negative 70 dBm. That's our secondary access point. And if we had any more APs that we could hear, we would see them here as well. For example, we could go look at the 6 gigahertz band. There's all my APs in the 6 gigahertz band. And then for this SSID, I don't have anything down in 2.4. So back in the 5 gigahertz band here, the next thing that I want to do is let's turn on our spectrum density. So actually, it turned back on when I switched different tabs. So there it is, ready to go. And to kind of wake up this view, actually, let's close our drawer a little bit. Ooh, yeah, full screen. That looks really good. Let's take a look at the spectrum data that we get from the spectrum analyzer. So you're seeing a little bit of color kind of here in the background. In fact, I'm going to hide the access points so we can see it a little bit better. This colorful stuff that you're seeing is the raw radio frequency activity that's coming off of the spectrum analyzer. In this case, the Osmium Y-Spy Lucid that I've got right here, or the Osmium Y-Pri Clarity if you've got one of those. Now, the color has the color tells us how often something is talking at that amplitude, at that frequency. So let's cause some activity really quickly here. So I've just kicked off a throughput test from my iPad. So I'm just testing to an iPerf server here in the office. And you can see that first it turns green, then it turns yellow, and then it's going to turn red. The color here tells us how often the spectrum analyzer heard something at that frequency, at that amplitude. That's the height of the graph. It tells us how often it heard something over a 30-second time span. And if we go back into the configuration, you can see that red means that something is talking on that channel at that frequency, at that amplitude, at least 50% of the time or more. So at least 50% of the time. I guess that was redundant. But yeah, you can see how often that channel is being used. Now that my throughput test has ended, now we see as we kind of slide out of that 30-second time span, we start to see the utilization on that channel start to drop down and disappear. So let's turn our access points back on so we can compare the two. So we can easily see that's where my access point is. It's on channel 108 and 112, and then we can use the spectrum analyzer to see how busy that channel is. I'll fire up another throughput test and we'll let it run for a second. Now, the great thing about spectrum analyzers is not only do they hear Wi-Fi, they hear everything else as well. So I actually have I have an analog wireless video camera here. This is like a 5 gigahertz camera for a drone. So I'm just going to connect that to some power really quickly. And let's see if we can see where it shows up here. So if you look closely, notice that next to our access point here on channel 108 and 112, there is this little spike shape that's shown up on channel 116. That's my wireless video camera. So one thing I'm going to do is I want to get a little bit more detail as to what's going on right now. Right now, we're actually sweeping the entire band. We're looking at everything from the bottom to the top of the 5 gigahertz band. And we keep the resolution a little bit lower to keep the speed higher. And so we're sweeping everything right now. But let's go ahead and just zoom in on what's happening right now. So I'm going to get nice and close. And what you'll notice is that we're actually going to retune the spectrum analyzer. So now we're only sweeping from this part of the band up to this part of the band. So we have this little mini map up here that kind of shows you the entire band all at once. And you can also tell what is currently being swept and what's not being swept by the spectrum analyzer. So notice that up here at the top of the band, in fact, let's just go up there really quickly. Notice that the spectrum density colors there are kind of, they're sort of desaturated because we haven't updated that data in a little while. And also, now that we've panned up there, now those colors have resaturated and kind of come back to life. And up in the mini map view, you can see that it's sort of like a dark gray color here. So what this tells us is that this is the part of the band that we're sweeping right now, whereas down here, the middle part of the band, we're not currently sweeping that right now. So let's go back down there. We pan down here, the colors are desaturated. We're going to retune the spectrum analyzer, and now we're sweeping that part of the band again. And you can tell if we're reconfiguring the spectrum analyzer, there's a little spinner indicator that shows up right here. So let's go pan back up to the top. We get a little spinner. We're reconfiguring the spec an, and there it goes. Now we've reconfigured it. Let's pan back down here to the bottom, or to the middle rather, where our video camera is. And now we're sweeping that with high resolution. And let's fire up our iPerf server again. And there we go. So now we'll get some spectrum analysis basically coming from our access point there. Oh, hey, check it out. Oh, that's fun. The AP moved. So I guess the access point was getting some sideband interference from my video camera. So the radio resource management actually moved it down here to channel 44 and 48. So again, let's zoom in so we get a nice high resolution look at that OFDM signature, and give it a second to kind of fill things in. Yep, there we go. That's OFDM. And then let's pan up here back up to our video camera, and there it is, doing its thing, causing mayhem. So I didn't plan for that in the demo. It's just RRM doing its thing. So, all right, cool. I think that's enough about kind of the spectrum analysis stuff. So one question you might have is, what happens if you don't have a spectrum analyzer? Because remember, we're looking at the Wi-Fi scanning data from the Oscium Nomad, and we're also looking at the spectrum analysis data from the Oscium Wi-Spy Lucid that I have up here on my shoulder. Well, let's unplug the Lucid and see what happens. If I just disconnect it, now notice that we still have the spectrum density colors here. We still have those, but they look a little bit different. So what we do now is, in the absence of a spectrum analyzer, we will use the QBSS load IE in the beacons from the access points to draw a spectrum density graph for you. So this is not layer 1 raw radio frequency activity like you get from a spectrum analyzer. This is from the perspective of the access points, but we can use that to still populate this graph and give you an idea of how busy each channel is. So for example, let's once again kick off our iPerf throughput test here, and we'll give that 30-second buffer a little bit of time to fill up. But what you're going to see is, now you'll see that our access point is going to start seeing some utilization and reporting that to us through the beacon, and then we can use that to fill in the spectrum density graph. So now we're seeing yellow, so that indicates somewhere between 30 and 40% utilization on that channel. If we had a couple more devices doing throughput tests, we'd probably see the whole thing fill up in red. Okay, cool. Next thing is, down below that view, we also have the associated clients table. This also looks at the QBSS load IE in the beacon from the access points, and it's telling us that we have 2 clients associated to this access point on our network, and then there's some other access points on the channel, and their combined amount of clients that we're hearing from those other APs are 1. So there's only 1 other client on this channel. Notice here on channel 52, we've got 3 clients associated to that access point. Let's go see if anybody else has any clients. Yeah, not really. Not really anything else significant. Let's go take a look at the 6 gigahertz band. Yeah, we've got 1 client on the 6 gigahertz band. That's my MacBook, probably doing its thing. We don't hear any other clients on the 6 gigahertz band right now. So then, now the last thing down below that is the networks and APs table. So this is just a simple table that shows you all of the SSIDs that we can hear nearby. For example, we can see the Hamina network here. We can see what the channel widths are, what the security type is, what the minimum data rate is, and what the highest signal strength that we're hearing off of that network is. And then the access points table. This is a list of all the individual BSSIDs that we can hear nearby. For example, you can see these 2 black dots here. That's our Hamina network that we've got selected right now. We can see there's 1 on channel 44. We could see it supports Wi-Fi 6, so it's 802.11ax, and it's sitting at negative 48 dBm. And you can see from the vendor logo here that this is a Juniper Mist network. So, kind of like your basic Wi-Fi scanning table there. Okay, I think that is everything from the real-time view in Hamina OnSite. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. You can visit our knowledge base. It's at docs.hamina.com. So docs.hamina.com will get you to our knowledge base. We've got all this stuff written down there. And if you have questions of any kind, feel free to reach out. You can always reach us at support@hamina.com. And thanks for watching the video. And I hope to see you in a Hamina video really soon. Bye now.